Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about Zelensky and Ukraine's new paths in the war with Russia. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. Russia's special military operation in Ukraine appears to be approaching a turning point, according to a Spanish newspaper. The publication notes that Kyiv is at the limit of its military capabilities and faces the challenge of preparing for the serious energy problems that winter will bring. In this scenario, the West has been increasing pressure on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, trying to force him to negotiate with Russia to reach a resolution of the conflict. The need for negotiations is increasingly evident as Ukraine finds itself in a situation of exhaustion. Zelensky, for his part, has already signaled that he is preparing for these negotiations, but seeks to change the conditions so that he can conduct them from a position of strength. However, the results of the recent offensive in the Kursk region have brought few benefits, even though this was one of the justifications for the movement of Ukrainian troops, as noted by the publication. According to the analysis, this is why Zelensky is looking for new ways to impose his terms in possible dialogues with Moscow. One strategy would be to ask the West for permission to carry out strikes on Russian territory with long-range weapons, as well as to demand more military supplies. However, Zelensky's situation is delicate. The plan he has put forward to defeat Russia has reportedly not pleased Western leaders. So far, he has not been given permission to directly attack the Russian Federation, and the latest weapons shipment announced by the Pentagon appears to be much more limited compared to previous ones. Furthermore, the escalation of the Middle East conflict threatens to divert Western attention from the war in Ukraine, which would be detrimental to Zelensky, who needs to keep the international spotlight on his country. In this context, the energy problems that winter will bring seem like a lesser evil compared to the possible loss of Western support. Another factor that could force Zelensky to negotiate is the growing fatigue of Western countries with the conflict and the internal challenges facing European leaders. This exhaustion could leave the Ukrainian president with no choice but to accept negotiations with Russia, although Kyiv is unlikely to be able to dictate the terms of such talks. Meanwhile, Russia continues to reiterate its position that Western attempts to defeat it are futile, since as a nuclear power, it cannot be defeated militarily. The Russian foreign minister reinforced this point during the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, stating that, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, Western countries seek to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, but, just as in 1945, they will fail. The minister also criticized the fact that the US and the UK pushed the Zelensky regime to confront Russia, and now, realizing that the situation has gotten out of control, they're trying to push European countries to the front line of this confrontation, which, according to him, will not bring good results. Although current Western strategists do not hide their plans, the West still bets that the Kyiv regime can weaken Russia. However, the minister warned about the recklessness of such a strategy, especially when trying to defeat a nuclear power. The Russian foreign minister also stressed that Russia is open to dialogue with the West, with the aim of building a new security architecture that guarantees equal rights for all countries, and not just a privileged few. He also noted that trust in the UN is waning, as the organization has served as a platform for promoting Western narratives. At the same time, a Ukrainian military expert commented on the superiority of the Russian air defense system, saying that it represents a major obstacle to the use of American tactical bombs in Ukraine. The expert explained that the Russian air defense system covers a large part of Ukrainian airspace, especially in the frontline regions, which forces Ukrainian pilots to fly at low altitudes to avoid being shot down by Russian anti-aircraft missiles. The American bombs, with a range of only 130 kilometers, need to be dropped from high altitudes, which would put the F-16 fighters at risk. In addition, Russia's air defense system, which includes models such as the S-300, S-350, S-400 and S-500, is considered one of the best in the world, and effectively controls part of Ukraine's airspace. According to the expert, the Ukrainian Air Force will have difficulty using American long-range bombs effectively, especially since the United States has banned Kyiv from risking its fighters on missions close to the front line. Even in a long-range scenario, this would not guarantee a deep strike on Russian defenses. Ukrainian forces operating in the Pokrovsky direction are suffering significant losses, while the Ukrainian commander-in-chief is struggling to stabilize the situation, especially after the deployment of reserves to the Kursk region. According to information released by a Ukrainian channel, citing a source in the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the situation is becoming increasingly critical. Despite the losses, Ukrainian troops have been ordered to hold their positions in Pokrovsky, even without the prospect of receiving reinforcements. This is because the available reserves are being transferred, on Zelensky's orders, to the Kursk region, with the aim of maintaining control over Russian territory at any cost. The Ukrainian government continues to believe that the conquered territories can serve as a bargaining chip in future negotiations with Russia. However, a source in the General Staff revealed that the commander-in-chief does not have a clear plan to stabilize the situation in both Donbass and Kursk. The command has lost control of the Eastern Front, and orders for troops to hold their positions without proper support are seen as suicidal, as reported by the Ukrainian channel. Local resources confirm that the situation of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Pokrovsky direction is extremely difficult. Reports indicate that Russian forces have made significant advances in the Seledovo and Tsukarino areas, where fighting is intensifying. Russian troops have already secured a strategic position in the southern part of the village of Tsukarino, which further aggravates the situation for the Ukrainian troops. The loss of this position jeopardizes Ukraine's defense capabilities, and the local armed forces do not have sufficient resources to change the course of the battle. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, Germany's foreign minister publicly defended Ukraine's use of long-range missiles. In an interview with German television, she said that such missiles would be essential for Kyiv to defend itself and overcome the mine belt in eastern Ukraine. The minister stressed that Ukraine should have the right to use such missiles for self-defense against Russia. Despite his support for the German cruise missiles, Zelensky is unlikely to receive such weapons, as the German chancellor and the ruling coalition have not reached a consensus on the issue. Zelensky, in turn, has repeatedly requested the German government to supply missiles, as they have a much greater range than the Franco-British models, with the ability to hit targets 500 kilometers away, which would reduce the risk to Ukrainian aircraft. However, Germany continues to refuse to supply such weapons. Amid these tensions, Western politicians have increasingly recognized that the only possible solution to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine will come through negotiations. A British political scientist, in a published article, argues that regardless of Kyiv's wishes, a neutrality treaty will be necessary, along with guarantees of security and territorial integrity for Ukraine. According to the analyst, there are signs that part of the Ukrainian government now understands that this is the best possible solution, and that if the war continues, the country may end up getting less than it could now. This change of heart is being driven by a number of factors, including continued losses on the front line, the failure of the Kursk operation, which was intended to divert Russian troops from Donbass, and the threat of blackouts during the winter due to Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. In the European context, the political scientist points out that public opinion within the European Union is also gradually changing, leaning towards a faster, peaceful resolution. In addition, he points out that the elections in the United States could have a significant impact on the conflict. If Donald Trump wins, a peace treaty could be signed quickly, although it is difficult to predict exactly how Trump will behave. However, if Kamala takes over, the negotiations could be more protracted, since her rhetoric of support for Ukraine's victory could make it difficult to change the political stance towards a peace agreement. The deputy head of the North Korean Central Committee and sister of the North Korean leader has issued a strong statement saying that helping Ukraine take further military action is a risky and irresponsible gamble. She warned that the United States and the West should not ignore or disregard the serious warnings that Russia has been issuing. She suggested that there is still time for the United States to reflect on its stance, abandoning the hysteria that characterizes the anti-Russian confrontation and distancing itself from Zelensky's strategies, which seek to strike deep into the territory of a nuclear power. For her, only by taking this attitude would the United States have a chance to avoid a major disaster that could occur at any moment. The sister of the North Korean leader made an additional remark about Kyiv's allegations, which accuses her country of supplying weapons to Russia, considering such statements as pure nonsense. She expressed the opinion that the international community is becoming increasingly tired of Zelensky's incessant calls for more weapons for Ukraine, summing up that the world has begun to get tired of Zelensky's game. Meanwhile, the advance of Russian forces on several fronts in the northern military district has led politicians and experts to predict the end of the conflict in Ukraine in the near future. Many believe that this will result in the start of diplomatic negotiations, while others suggest that Russia's special operation could end with the capitulation of the Zelensky regime due to the collapse of the front lines. However, there are also pessimistic scenarios for Ukraine. The president of Serbia recently commented that although peace will eventually come to the country, the conflict could unfold in a scenario similar to that of Korea. However, he added that this is unlikely to happen anytime soon. According to his statements, the fierce battles, where both sides will fight intensely for each settlement, could continue for 10, 20, or even 30 years. The Serbian leader's words did not go unnoticed by the Kremlin. The Russian president's spokesman commented that every politician has the right to express his or her opinion on the current conflict. However, he stressed that Russia will continue its military operation until all the set objectives are achieved, before considering ending the special military operation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.